Hey, how's it going? All right. Everybody hanging in there? All right. So I thought it's not directly part of the sermon. I want to start it anyway. Probably want to talk about the COVID-19 thing because you guys need to hear what's happening with that. And give me a light so I can see because they missed an hour's sleep and they're going to fall asleep easy and they do not need to be in the dark. Thank you very much. So this group right here, that's the ones I'm worried about. I need this set lit. This group right here are the one. There we go. I'm not as worried about anybody, but this right here, as a matter of fact, is the group we got to watch. They're ornery anyway. So anyway, I want to talk about that for just a second. Anytime something like this happens, there's always extremes and people going in all kinds of crazy different. And can we just use common sense? No, apparently not. Okay, let me give you some basic advice that you have, most of which you have already heard, but I'm gonna give it to you one more time. Okay, some basic precautions for this. Wash your hands. The best one I've seen so far says wash your hands like you just sliced the jalapenos for a Texas barbecue, and now you got to change your contacts. Okay, that's just good stuff. Isn't that good stuff? That's good stuff. That's good right there. I collect these things so that I can use them in situations like this. Okay. Also, we may want to. I was doing some fist bumping coming in. We want to switch to the elbows or the toe taps or the Vulcan, instead of the handshakes for a little bit. Understand? Because we do want to be intelligent. You don't want to be, too crazy either direction. If you got a cough, cover it up. Stay home if you're sick. Be nice to us. Here's the one, though, I think we're missing. Remember your neighbors. Okay? And there's two different ways you got to remember your neighbors. You have neighbors who are highly susceptible to this, and you need to be careful with them. That's why you wash your hands. That's why you cover your cough. Okay? Because don't worry. Can I go just a little bit Steve on you? I really, really have a problem with Christians who shift, and it seems like our entire culture is almost all Christians. We sing broken all, how we're out there to change the world, but as soon as anything goes wrong, we go into panic mode and selfish mode. Can I tell you something? This is me. I'm going to be mean. I'm sorry. I didn't get enough sleep last night. It's how it works. Okay? The early church blossomed and grew radically fast because one of the big things that happened was a plague would break out in a city. And I'm talking a plague where most people die. And remember when 9/11 happened, everybody was talking about how everybody was running out of the building and the firemen and the policemen were running into the building? That's what Christians did in the early days of the church when there was a plague. Everybody was leaving the community because they might catch it, and Christians are walking right past them on the way and said, there's people hurting here. We're going to help. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying we need to be stupid, but we cannot. We can. We're obviously doing it. We should not be the ones panicking because we're afraid we're going to get sick. Does that make sense? Am I putting it right out there for you? Because that's the way we are. We are called to be selfless, not selfish. Okay, that was the. Can I give you one little example of this? I got a message last night from somebody who was a member of our church years ago. She moved pretty far away. She has extreme health problems, and she's a single mom. Life is not easy for this woman. And as soon as anything started, and they closed the food center in her community. So she's got health problems, so she's got to worry about it to start with. She's one of the people who's susceptible to this, very susceptible, and she can't feed her kids because a bunch of Christians were too afraid to distribute food. You with me? Can I tell you some people who are at risk in our community, not to get the disease, but in life? It is a very strong possibility the waitress in the restaurant you visit this afternoon is working 2 jobs and struggling just to get by. And if all the Christians decide we're going to crawl in a hole and not go to restaurants, how's she going to feed her kids? Thought about that? The small business owners in our community, do you think they can afford to shut down for 3 months, 2 months, 2 weeks? I'm laying it heavy. I acknowledge I'm laying it down heavy on you. But we claim the name of Jesus Christ. We call ourselves Christians. Our job is to stand up in times of trouble, not to crawl in a hole and say, oh, please don't let anything bad happen to me. We are supposed to run in when others run out. Now, I do not mean to be stupid about it. I don't mean to be blatant about, oh my gosh, I'm just not going to wash my hands and I'm going to go find people that are sick and go hang out with them and then go, no, that's not being a good neighbor. That's not helpful either because I'm then promoting the disease. I don't want to do that either. But we have a responsibility. It reminds me, story a lot of you know, and those of you who don't know the story when I start will remember part of it when I end. There's a story about 2 brothers. It's in Genesis, very, very beginning of Genesis. And Cain and Abel, you guys heard the name, nothing else. And Cain and Abel have a dispute, and Cain ends up killing his brother Abel. And God comes by, as Genesis tells it, to check on things. And the Lord said to Cain, where's your brother Abel? And Cain replied, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? Yeah. And the answer to that question is, yes, you are, Cain. Yes, you are. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. I am the weakest person in the community's keeper. I am the keeper of everyone in my sphere of influence. I have a responsibility for every stinking one of them. Okay? I have to be wise and discerning and keep everything in balance, but I am my brother's keeper. Does that make sense? And we do that a lot here. We believe in this. This is not. I'm not throwing you something new. Nobody's going, I can't believe Steve said that, right? Everybody's going, that's Steve, all right. And that's us, all right, right? I mean, we look for, and one of the ways we do this with being our brother's keeper is we talk about this a lot. We talk about helping the least, helping those who are hurting. And we got, is it Kelsey, right? Kelsey is the head of it's the Rape Crisis Center. I believe, I can't see the sign right now. But we discovered, Kat over here who finds these amazing projects for us, Kat discovered that they were having a problem because women and men who are assaulted, when they go to the hospital, the police take their clothes as evidence as part of the testing process, and the people have to leave in a hospital gown. And they were collecting, I'm so proud of you guys for this one, by the way. They were collecting sweats so that they could give them something to wear home. And Kat tells the church goes, oh, okay, we can do that. And now, tell me if I'm wrong, we provide for the whole area. We provide for the region. Okay, we bring in enough sweats in one drive, 1 month, every year, and we just have to do it every year because you guys are going to bring in about 300 sets this year, like you do every year, and it's going to provide for the whole year. And it matters. Do you see that? We're reaching out to the least. We are being our brother and our sister's keeper, and we're doing it in ways that matter. Okay? And that's just who we are. Okay? Today, though, we're going to be talking about that. This actually works in directly. Because we're finishing our series in the book of James today. And where's the run for that? We're going to be in James 5, and we're going to be looking at the last 2 verses of the book of James. James has been teaching. His whole letter has been attacking us and challenging us, and he saves something for last. Do you think it's important if he saved it for last? And it's funny because a lot of the letters that you read in the New Testament, the ones that Paul writes, the ones that Peter writes, they end up with this section where they go, oh, and tell Thomas said hi, and greetings to Leroy, and Lisa, and Mary, and there's this huge section. James, of course, he just stops. And he stops with this. My dear brothers and sisters, if someone among you wanders away from the truth and is brought back, you can be sure that whoever brings the sinner back from wandering will save that person from death and bring about the forgiveness of many sins. And what did he just say? You are your brother's keeper. He ends his incredibly powerful book by saying, remember, you are your brother's keeper. Not just in the physical sense, not just when they're physically having issues, not when just they need food or anything, but you are your brother's keeper. And this is going to freak you out because most of you have been taught your whole lives you're not supposed to be this. You are your brother's keeper. You are your sister's keeper when it comes to spiritual matters just as much as when it comes to physical matters. We have a tendency to say, oh, it's none of my business. It's their personal time, with their personal relationship with God. It's not my business. James, and we're going to see as we go through a number of other writers in the Bible, will beg to differ. It is my business. Matter of fact, he's very clear about it, isn't it? Someone wanders away from the truth. Whoever brings them back did a really good thing. Matter of fact, save that person from death and bring out all kinds of junk. Now, when we did, I'm touching my face, but I'm all by myself. So, just takes a long. Did you notice how hard it was? You tried not to shake hands. It's really hard to do that in church. You're like, so that was free. Okay, where's the time? Oh, earlier in the year we did our 21 days of prayer. And the 21 days of prayer, we one of the things that we had you do was, as you're praying for people, to classify people, to think about them spiritually. Remember that? Anybody remember that at all? You know, when we did that, I said one of the first, put their name down and then put where you think they are in one of three categories spiritually. Not to be judgmental, but so you'd pray well for them and think about them from a proper perspective. Now, there were three perspectives. There were people who were far from God. We call them lost or whatever. People who are far from God. There are people who are connected strongly with God and growing. And there's the group of people who were connected with God, who probably still are connected with God, but are kind of off the path. Okay, they've kind of strayed from doing what they know is right. And this group, he's talking obviously about the ones who were on the path and then veered off. You know anybody that's done that? Anybody here not done that? Yeah, this is the human. This is how the human thing works. We're working our way toward God. Something happens, weird idea, whatever. We detour. This is what we do with people who are detouring. And when we did it, I said, what you want to do when somebody comes along who has a relationship with God but is off the path is our job is to reactivate them. Reactivation. We're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about how to do that. And what James had said to do was restore them. Okay, that's the first word you get. When somebody is off, your job is to restore them, to bring them back. Now, as you're reading that, you looked at that passage in James, and you looked at that last part, and you kind of thought it was weird, didn't you? If you paid attention. Whoever brings the sinner back from wandering will save that person from death. What? 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 Okay, let me show you something in 1 Corinthians that kind of talks into that. Talking about taking communion in a way when you're living a life that's totally opposed to God, but you're taking communion anyway. He says, if you eat the bread or drink the cup without honoring the body of Christ, you're eating and drinking God's judgment on yourself. That is why many of you are weak and sick, and some of you have even died. See, when you're living God's way, there is an umbrella of protection over you. Now, as we all know, it's not a bubble, it's an umbrella. With an umbrella, sometimes stuff blows in. Right? So we're walking around. We've got the umbrella of God's protection, so it keeps some things from hitting us, but other things still show up. Well, what happens when you walk away from God is you walk out from under God's umbrella of protection, so even more stuff hits you. But there's another problem from that perspective. Paul says in Philippians that the one who began a good work in you will complete it. And God is really adamant about the completing process. Okay? There's another guy in the Bible, you've heard of David and Goliath, right? So David has his thing with Goliath, and even before David and Goliath, he's been anointed to be the next king of Israel. So David is going to be the next king of Israel. He's slain Goliath. He becomes a military hero, which all this works together to tick off the guy who's the current king of Israel and really doesn't want to give up his house. right? Or his big fancy chair. So he starts trying to kill David. And he sends armies after David. And every time he gets close, God miraculously saves David. So you think David's doing really well. But then there's a verse in there right after a miraculous rescue where God just, saves him. And it says, David said, basically paraphrasing, one of these days, Saul's going to get me. Now, what's that? It's a lack of faith. Right? God's been taking care of me, but one of these days, God's not going to take care of me. Saul's going to come after me, and God's not going to be there for me. So David chooses to move out of the promised land, out of the Holy Land, out of Israel, and he moves to the land of the Philistines, who are their bitterest enemy. And he convinces one of the city kings in the Philistine area to grant him protection. And so he moves there, and he starts living a life that is totally opposed to so many of God's principles. It's crazy how much he rebels against God in this time frame. The guy gives him this little town called Ziklag, which is as wonderful as it sounds. I think the name means garbage dump. Seriously. And David, to make a living, he's got this little army, 300 or 400 guys. He moves his army and all their families to this little town called Ziklag. And he starts raiding other towns nearby. And he'll go to those towns, and he'll steal all their stuff. Stealing. Isn't that in the top 10? That's like a top 10 commandment kind of thing. Don't do that, right? And then, so that his sponsor doesn't find out about it, he murders all the people in the town. Just kills everybody. Murder. That's in that list too, isn't it? And then he goes to his sponsor and says, okay, I went to such and such a town, and the town he says is not the town he went to. You say, I went to a town in Israel and raided them, when he really raided a town that wasn't in Israel. So he lied, and, that's in that list too. And so David, who God has ordained to be the next king of Israel, is living a life totally opposed to God, and God's like, yeah, we're not going to let this last. And David, at some point, it comes time for the Philistines and the Israelites to go to war, because they like to go to war. It's their hobby. It's like Netflix for them. And they're getting ready to start the battle, and David's sponsor says, hey, you should come with us and fight the Israelites. And David goes, sure. And they get there, and the other Philistines look around and go, who's that? That's David. Didn't he kill Goliath? Yeah. Don't they have songs about how many Philistines he's killed in his lifetime? Yeah, they do. It's like top 40 stuff is how many people David's killed. So why don't we not bring him? So that he doesn't decide to turn on us in the middle of the battle and get back in the good graces of all the people. Why don't we just leave him home? And so David goes back home, and this is just God moving the umbrella. David gets back to the town of Ziklag, and raiders have come through and done to his village what he's been doing to everybody else. He reaps what he's been sowing. And he gets there, and everything is taken, and the village has been burned to the ground, and the only difference is these people didn't kill all of the people that lived there. They took them away so they could sell them as slaves. And at this moment, David's little army of 300-400 guys is ticked because their families are the ones who've been taken. And they say, you know what? So they start murmuring, you know what? We should probably just kill David and get out of this while we can. And so God has taken David and he's squished him to the ground. Anybody relate? And the next phrase says, but David found strength in the Lord his God. And he turned back to God. God restored him after he'd returned. Okay? Isn't that cool? And that's how serious God takes this. Now, here's my problem. I've got somebody in my life right now, a very, very close person to me, who is turning away from God's standards and principles in their lives. You know what I want to do? Pinch his head off. Right? I want to do bad things. I want to say mean things. I want to go crazy with him. But here's what it says in the actual Bible when it gives me the instructions. It says, I've got to find the right spot. Let me just say this. Let me just give you the thing. It says to restore them gently. Here's how in Galatians it says, brothers and sisters, if someone is overtaken in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual, restore such a person with a gentle spirit. But I want to be mean. I want to slap them because they really do deserve. You know people who need to slapping, right? There are people who sometimes deserve a good slapping. I don't care if you are touching their face. They need a slapping. But here's God's strategy for this. Okay? You know, good cop, bad cop? You get to be the good cop. And God gets to be the bad cop because he's really good at knowing exactly where to slap. Right? David's all about power and safety, so God takes away all his power and safety. So we are to restore people, but we're to be the good cop. We're to be the one who's doing it gently. Okay? And then let's keep reading. Watching out for yourselves so that you also won't be tempted. Then it says, carry one another's burdens. In this way, fulfill the law of Christ, which is back to the gently. You're taking care of the person. You're helping the person. You're meeting their needs in the middle of the time when you want, you're bringing them food when you really want to poison the food. Or maybe not poison the food. Laxative the food. That's spiritual, isn't it? Okay. But here's the next piece of it. Watching out for yourselves so that you also won't be tempted. So we're supposed to restore gently and carefully. Recognizing that either the thought pattern that led them away from God or the actions that led them away from God might be tempting to you, and you have to be careful as you're restoring them so that you don't fall into the same trap that they fell into. Okay? Which is one reason I think you're supposed to be gentle about it. Because if you go in mean, you're also going in my case, do you ever do are mean and cocky together for you? Isn't mean tied to a little bit of arrogance that I know better than you what you need in your life? And I think if you go in arrogant, that sets you up. What's in the Bible say? Pride goes before a... Yeah, you don't have to know the Bible to know that one, right? Yeah, pride goes before the fall. And so we're to go in gently and carefully because we're not God and we are susceptible to whatever it is that they just did. We think we're not, and the moment you think you're not, that's when you're in the most trouble. I like to keep track in my head of the pastors who I know of who have fallen in the past recent period of time. Not to judge them, but to go, Steve, you're no better than they are. You're made of the same material. Same fallen material, so you have to be careful. Okay? So that's people who have drifted from the path. Now, anybody here, you don't have to raise your hand, ever drifted from the path? Anybody here glad that God played bad cop and probably somebody in your life played good cop to bring you back? Okay? Okay, so we talked about those. Matter of fact, so let's talk now about another one of our three. We talked about people who've drifted from God. What about people who've never come to God? You know people like that, right? Am I their keeper? Okay? If God brings somebody into your sphere of influence, you are at some level their keeper. Not fully responsible for them, but you have some accountability for how you treat them. And here's what we know about that one. If they don't have a relationship with God, our goal for them is salvation. Okay? You don't have to explain that, do I? And Peter explains that to us. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Revering Christ as Lord means you acknowledge that person needs salvation. If you're saying that people out there don't need Jesus, you're saying Jesus isn't Lord. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll move on. For those people who don't know that, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do that with gentleness and respect. Okay? So for those people, I want to encourage them to move toward God. Now, a lot of times what we want to say is, I want to bring that person to Christ right now. That's a good thing to want. It's a hard thing to do. Because most people have a long way to go to get to God. There's a lot of decisions they have to make. Your job is to help them. There are people in my life, and my job with them, I know, was to help them make one or two really good decisions. Now they have to make a decision. There is a God. I think I'm really good at the all Christians aren't annoying, painful pains in the butt. Because I'm a non-annoying, painful pain in the butt. You know, I bring, you know, I make you laugh while I'm annoying you. So it's, but I think that's one of the things. Sometimes there are people that in your life, and they're nowhere near ready to accept Christ, but they do need a lesson what a Christian's supposed to look like. If we want to go back to the current crisis, some of which is of our own undertaking, there are people out there who need to see how Christians are supposed to respond to crises. How they're supposed to respond when things go bad. They need to see that from you. So model it. Do that. Help them move toward God by erasing one of their objections to God. That Christians are all selfish jerks. Let me give you another one. Restaurant today. If you go out to eat, if there's tipping involved, tip well. Okay? Ask anybody, from what I understand, you ask anybody who's been in the food service industry, Christians leaving church are the worst tippers in the world. Okay? Don't do that. Okay? Especially if either you have one of Spout Springs Church stickers on your car or you're wearing a Spout Springs Church shirt, you better tip well. We got some waitresses and waiters in here, and if they tell me that you're not and you had the shirt on, I'm coming and repossessing the shirt. I'm peeling the sticker off the back of your car. There's two reasons I'll peel the sticker off the back of your car. One, if you don't tip right with that on your car, and two, if you're driving slow in the left lane. I will pull you over like Dukes of Hazzard. I'll Roscoe P. Coltrane you all day and get that sticker off your car. But anyway, that's just nothing. Because that's a bad witness too. Okay? Encourage them to move toward God. Now let me show you something interesting. I think it's interesting. Because when we saw it talking about how to win somebody back, it said to do it gently and carefully. Okay? Now look at what it said here. But do this with gentleness and respect. Still gentle, but now respectful. Because a lot of times we bring this spiritual arrogance to people who are far from God. So we're like, well, if you knew what I knew. I look around a lot at some of the things we put on our signs or on our bumper stickers, and some of them are so arrogant and disrespectful to the people we're talking to. Okay, not everybody out there is an idiot. Okay? And some of the idiots are Christians. So there are plenty of Christians who are non-Christians who are intelligent people, and you need to make an accommodation for the fact you're not talking to somebody necessarily who's an idiot. Treat them with respect. Does that make sense? Okay. Can I give you... Now, how do we do this here? How do we help people come to Christ here? Do you guys remember this? We set up the whole Sunday morning thing to make it safe and welcoming for people who are far from God, or people who've turned away from God, and people who are good, solid Christians still, right? And then what we ask you to do is, this is weird, make friends. Not to be manipulative, not to play, but just make friends, because that's what humans do. And you make friends, and you get into their lives, not in a nosy way, just the way friends are in each other's lives, and you stay aware of what's going on, and you wait for the opportunity, and you pray for the opportunity, and when they show that they're leaning in a spiritual direction, you say, you know what? You'd like our church. We're talking about some of the questions that you're asking right now. You'd like it. And so you invest in their lives, then you invite them here. And the redhead tells them about Jesus. This is my job. okay? As I get to tell them the stuff you're afraid to say because it can be intimidating to tell somebody that, oh, by the way, you're a sinner. But I tell you that guy's stuff all the time, right? And you don't like walking up to somebody and say, oh, you're a sinner, but I can do it. Glad to. So you invest in them, you invite them here, keep them coming back, help them, encourage them, respect them gently, take them out to eat afterwards and tip well. Okay? And in time, we watch over and over people take a few months and they come to Christ. Sweet, huh? Can I give you another opportunity to serve to help us do this? Well, if you speak Spanish, not spectacularly, just well enough to follow a conversation. If you took Spanish 2, Spanish 1 is probably not sufficient, right? Well, Spanish 1, they're not going to get there. But Spanish 2, you got a shot. We need just, a handful, 10, 12 people to just go be part of the Spanish venue when it starts next week. Same time as here, you drop your kids off in the exact same place and do it for about a month. I'm not asking for the rest of your lives. For about a month, if you'll go just sit in the Spanish venue, be friendly. You don't have to run everything. You don't have to lead anything. Just be friendly. On the Sundays that you can do it, go sit there, and that makes it more welcoming for the people who don't know anybody. When they come in the room, there's already people there. People who know to be friendly, who we've already trained how to do the whole welcome home thing, who understand how to be nice to people. Go out there for about a month. Help us get just that core group of people that people can, oh, there's somebody else here. I'm not the only one. Does that make sense? Anybody here committing to do that right now? Just in your head, admit it. It's not hard, is it? We're talking, matter of fact, it's the same sermon. Will and the teaching team and I sit down on Thursday nights and we walk through the sermon, and we did it practice again this week, and Will went through and we walked through, and a couple other, Nelton and a few other people, and we walked through the sermon and we translated it into Spanish. So you'll use the same notes, but they'll be in Spanish. You'll get the same points, the same scriptures. You'd have heard the same David story. And you're helping lead people to Christ. Does that make sense? That was a commercial, but you're okay with it, right? And some of you are going, right? Yes. Okay. Matter of fact, if you go to Mexican restaurants frequently, go on over there. Just try it out once, Throw in the word burrito once in a while, and then we can say. Okay, one more. We've talked about two out of 3. Now we talk about the people who have a relationship with God. So we're talking some about many of you in here, not all of you, but many of you in here. You've got a solid relationship with God. And what are we supposed to do when we have a friend who already has a solid relationship with God? They're on the path, they're already growing. I'm afraid a lot of times we say, leave them alone. No. It's on my screen. Can you hit that button for me, please? Why is it not doing it? The word is development. Go ahead and fill it out. Let's see if I have a verse. I have a verse. Development. There we go. Thank you. I think I got it back now. That was weird. Now, here's what Hebrews says, the author of Hebrews says, about what to do with people who are already Christians. I love this verse. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. I'm going to hold on to what I believe. I'm going to hold it strongly. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. I love the word spur. Don't you love the word spur? He could have said, encourage. He said spur. He said spur. Which means I'm supposed to challenge them to continue growth. Because if we're not careful, that person next to you will come to the conclusion that they've arrived. And my job is to make sure they recognize God's still working. I don't know how long you've been a Christian. God's still working. Until you look just like Jesus, God's still working. And I know you folks, and you all still need work. I need work. I need more than most of you. But we all still need work. So God's still working. God's still working. But let me show you this. This is cool. This goes with the whole spur thing. when we talked about the first group, reactivation, we said you're supposed to bring them back gently with fear. Okay? The second group, it said gently with respect. For Hebrews, you know what word he took out this time? The word gently. He just says challenge. He says spur. Okay? That doesn't mean you can't be gentle sometimes. But sometimes you need gentle. But it's the belief that everybody out there still needs to grow. I think that's one of the problems we have in a lot of places with a lot of Christians and a lot of churches is everybody there thinks they've arrived in any meaningful way. Okay. We've got the little things that we like to talk about. Well, I still got to do, and all it is refining little things. And we forget, anybody got anything? If you're really honest, hey, you can be honest, you're in church, okay? And don't have to tell anybody what you're thinking. This is all private with you, okay? Aren't there some things in your life that are actually kind of big that you wish God would fix? If you're really honest, aren't there some things that where you're going, you know what? I need a tweak here and a tweak here, and then I need my transmission replaced. Right? Is that how? That's how it is. And if what we do is we tweak and we tweak and we say, and I'll get to heaven and God will fix the transmission. God might want to fix your transmission now. God might want to work in you now to do big, amazing, great things. I still find it so cool when God suddenly fixes something that I've been working on in my life for years and years, sometimes decades. I've been working on something in my life, and God suddenly goes, okay, let's work on that one now. And then he fixes it. That's sweet. That's really cool. But number one, you have to be willing to let him change it. And number two, it's really helpful if there's other people in your life who are annoying you and spurring you into it, who aren't going to let you just be that way. Now, I'm not talking about going up to somebody you barely know. And you know what I've seen in your life? Yeah, here's 3 things you really need to work on in your life. I've been observing you. I'm not talking about those. But you need to have some people in your life who can speak that way to you, and you need some people in your life that you can speak that way to. That you can go up to them and say, you know what I'm seeing in you? I'm seeing that you made one. It didn't seem that big a deal, but I've seen an attitude shift in you. You just said, I don't know if God's always going to rescue me. I don't know if God's always going to keep me safe. It's a dangerous statement. Are you sure you mean that? Because the next thing you got to do is the person then goes from that statement, I don't know if God's always going to rescue me, to I'm going to go over here where it's safe, where God doesn't have to rescue me. And then it goes to, and to stay in the land where it's safe, I need to start compromising how I live and what I believe. And the next thing you know, that friend or you is living a life that is totally opposed to God's principles and his standards. You guys know this, I have a pastor I meet with once a week. We have been meeting together for 15 years. There's not a whole lot we don't know about each other. And we'll have some really good discussions, challenging each other, figuring out how. And it takes 15 years to get the 15-year guy. But you need somebody. Now, let me give you some. Mind if I give you some things? Because the church is becoming more and more committed to this concept of having some accountability, having that. Let me give you a few things we got going. We've got the triads. We're just rolling those out. That's where you guys know this, right? You've got a person who will contact you once a month and ask you 3 questions. How are you doing in your time with God? How are you doing in serving God? And what can I pray for you about? How can I pray for you? 3 questions once a month. It's not that scary. Okay? So if you want to try it, just email us at the office and say, hey, I want to be in one of those. I want somebody asking me those questions so that when I start thinking those weird things, I can be in the process of building a relationship with somebody who I trust enough. Because at the beginning, you won't trust them enough. See, but you'll never get to trust if you don't ever start. So you start the process, you build the relationship, and you build the trust. Okay? Triads. We've also, of course, got connection groups. That's a great way to have a group of people who can watch you and go, hey, that's wrong. Stop that. You need encouraged. Let me encourage you. Okay? You know what's a really good one? Are ministry teams. That's one of the reasons we push you to be on a ministry team. Which ministry team was whooping and hollering on that one? Back here, that was tech this time. Okay, text me. Because you can join any one of the ministry teams, and there's an accountability that comes with it naturally. You know, because if you're scheduled to sing and you don't show up, people are going to notice. Okay? If you're scheduled to work with children, you're scheduled to work on the tech team, anything that you're scheduled to do, they're going to know that you're not there. They're also going to know if you start turning them down every week. And so that ministry leader actually gives you a little bit of accountability to help you not screw up. And by the way, then you move into a leadership position, and so now you're showing accountability. And finally, this, and I like this one because it's mine. I'm really working to make this a place where you can get a lot of growth material. I'm starting to answer videos on answering questions. That's where I put the blog about how a Christian response to the COVID-19. That's where I put the daily jump starts. That's where I put basics on what to do after you unpack a blue bag. What's the next step for that? And I want to make this into the site where you guys go, I got a question about this. I'm not sure about this for my spiritual development. Wonder if he's answered it already. If not, shoot me an email, and I'll shoot a video, and I'll answer it. We're moving into our new house in the next couple weeks, and we're looking in the house. I'm not making this up. And we go into the second bedroom, and Kim walks over, and the second bedroom has a walk-in closet. And Kim goes, "Your studio!" And we said, "Sold. We'll take this one," because I want that, because I've got it all picked out. I got to put rugs on the walls so I can keep the sound absorbed right, and I got to put the camera here, and I'll sit here and the stuff. Because I really want to be pouring into you, and it's hard to do that one-on-one with this many people, but I can set up a website where I can do it, and that whatever you need, I'm going to have. You want to know what apps to use for your quiet time? I've already got a video up on here's the best 5 apps to use to help your quiet time get better. Okay? That's the kind of stuff we're going to have. So anyway, that was free, right? So, question. Are you your brother's keeper? Boy, that's not really a good job at all. I know you're tired and you get enough sleep last night, but are you your brother's keeper? Yes. Your sister's keeper? The keeper of those? Are you responsible for the people around you? Your job, okay, is to recognize that not only are you their keeper, they're yours. And you need to let yourself be in that community where people can speak into your lives. Because that's how God changes lives. So if you're doing this island thing, where you're off by yourself and you don't ever talk to anybody else and nobody else ever talks to you and there's nobody that knows you well enough, get off the island. It's not a healthy place to be. Because you need other people and there are other people that need you. Second, who in your life is currently not a follower of Christ? Who in your life needs salvation? What are you doing to help them move toward God? Who in your life is already a solid Christian, and you know you are already in position to, when you hear that first statement, you can say, that's not, you're going the wrong direction. That's a bad decision. That's wrong. Who in your life do you have that relationship with who's already a solid Christian? And who in your life do you know of that has gotten off the path? Where you need to be the good cop. Where you're honestly saying what they're doing. You're not justifying it. You're also not slapping them. But you are gently and carefully encouraging them back to restoration and a relationship with God. If none of those clicked with you, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home. I want you to get a piece of paper. I want you to write down a list of names. These are the people that are closest to me in my life. Family, friends, the people that I know them relatively well. And beside them, I want you to say, this is a person who has a strong relationship with Christ. This is a person who needs a relationship with Christ. And this is a person who strayed from their relationship with Christ. Are you hearing me? I know you want a nap and you got a busy afternoon because we got Bill's service, but after you settle down this evening, before you go to bed tonight, I want you to make that list. I want you to write those names down. Because you are your brother's keeper. And if you're here today and you don't have that relationship with Christ at all, if there are people here who quite possibly have your name on a list, and beside it, it says they need salvation, be a great day for that. All we ask you to do is grab one of these blue bags after the service. There's some there, there's a few on the tables in the back. You pick up a blue bag, we'll connect you with somebody who's trained. They'll take 7 to 10 minutes, unpack the bag with you, and show you how to have that relationship with Christ. Okay? If you have the relationship with Christ, the next step is baptism, to announce to the world you're a follower of Christ. We did that first Wednesday. You got a month to get ready. So go ahead and email baptism@spousesprings.org. We'll get that started. If you want to start really growing into that relationship, guess what? Tonight is the Step 2 class. We've just rewritten the Step 2 class, and the Step 2 class is all about how you grow in your relationship with Christ. Pastor Barry teaches us. He does an amazing job in that kind of stuff. He just loves to watch people grow. I mean, he doesn't show it emotionally, but I know. But that's a man that I sit down with regularly, and if he needs to say something to me or I need to say something to him, we have the freedom to say it. Okay? And he does a great job with that class, and that's tonight at 6 in Steel Fortress. You can sign up if you want to, or just show up. Child care is provided. We'll help you start growing even more in that relationship with Christ. If you're going to pray about something we've said, we've got a prayer cross over there for that. We're going to take communion. We've got communion stations here and there. If you're going to pray with somebody, we've got people around the outside of the auditorium. But can I just pray for you? Let's just close with that, okay? Father, thank you that I am my brother and my sister's keeper. That you think enough of me that I have responsibility. Father, thank you that there are other people out there who are my keeper, who are concerned about me. And Father, help us to live in such a way, with our actions and our words, so that people who have drifted away from the faith can be brought back, so that people who don't have any faith can be brought toward faith, and so that those who have a strong faith can grow even closer to you. Help us to live that way as our brother and sister's keepers. That's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Would you